every so often I'm going to adjust this. Today is January 20th, 2010. I'm here to interview you about the Jewish Displaced Persons Camp.
And you have to speak louder.
I'm here to interview you about the Jewish Displaced Persons Camp. My name is Evie Litwak. First, I'm going to get a little information about you and your name, your given name, before you were married.
I was born Esther Petseil
And what town?
in Będzin, Poland.
And what was your date of birth?
12/23/24.
And your family of origin, what was your mother's name, your father's name, and if you had brothers and sisters?
Well, I'm one of 8 children. My mother's name was Devorah, maiden name Zimmerman, and my father's name was Shlomo Himmelfarb. And I was one of 8, like I mentioned, but I was the 7th in the family, one before the youngest. My oldest brother, his name was Shimon. He emigrated to Israel. He was one of the pioneers in 1934 or 35. I hardly remembered him because I was a kid. Then I had a sister, Anja.
Okay.
After her was my brother Ben Zion Himmelfarb. It's okay.
Yeah.
Ben Zion, he was one of the, by the way, my brothers, we were all Zionists at home. The oldest brother was the leader of Mizrahi, and he organized the women's group, Bruria, I think it was called. He was one of the first ones to go to Harshara in Poland. My sister belonged to Hitachtud, who was a part of Gordonia. But, she was a girl, so she was at home, but she was very active. Then came Ben Zion. He was the leader for he was the head of Keren Kayemet in Będzin, and very active in Gordonia, and he went to Harshara too for a while. And unfortunately he got stuck home. He didn't go to Israel. And he was working in Lodz. His job was, he was the head salesman of one of the biggest companies, textile companies in Lodz. And this was, the owner was the Radomski Rebbe, who was a friend of my father. And he was one of the richest people in Poland. So he worked on to the end until the war broke out, but he got stuck in Lodz. Then came Haskell, and he belonged to Hanoah HaTzioni, which was more of a scout organization. It was like the Beitar, but in a different way. And this was, Hanoah HaTzioni was like the elite group of youth in our town. Then was Yoel, who was also in Mizrahi. And I show you pictures, I have pictures of them. Then came Kalman, also Mizrahi, and I became active in Hanoah HaTzioni during the war, before we went to Birkenau, to Auschwitz. And then was my youngest sister, Bala. She was still a kid, but she followed me, so she belonged even to a younger group in Hanoah.
Now, of your family, who survived?
I survived, was my younger sister, and Ben Zion survived.
Is that the brother who emigrated to Israel?
Well, this one I met him when I went back to Poland to look for the family. So I found my brother. And he was in Benjin. He heard that the way I conducted myself in camp, that I must be alive. So he stayed in Benjin, and I didn't even know. He, I think, was liberated from Buchenwald. But being that he was a salesman, he knew Poland very well, so he escaped in the Death March. And he went straight to Benjin. My younger sister took sick during the war, and she developed a rheumatic heart from a strep throat. But being that there was no help, so it advanced and she was very sick. And this is how I brought her into Auschwitz, to Birkenau. When we came to Birkenau, being that she was younger than me, I was running after my mother because they split us, the men from the women. So my mother said, take care of your sister so she will survive. And this was our struggle in Birkenau. And I got her through from the gas chamber. I took her out from a selection from the gas chamber. And she was the only one from about that time they took like 20,000 girls to the crematorium. So what happened, when I came back, she was already in the, I'm giving you, I know you are not
It's okay.
looking, but it's a connection
It's okay.
after with my liberation. So when I came back, because they took off our clothes and everything, and this was in the winter, December of 1944. I ran out completely naked from the sauna, and I ran into the office, and they were mostly Jewish girls working there. And I begged, I said, by mistake, I went to the sick people. I didn't talk about my sister, I talked about me. Because I always kept her in front of me. And whatever happens to her, I would follow. So she kept on throwing me out, beating me. And she didn't even want to talk to me. I said, nobody's here. Nobody would even know that you were raised a number. No, nothing doing. And I was laying in the snow outside. And all of a sudden, Hessler, the head of the camp, like Joseph Kramer, he was after Joseph Kramer. So he looks at me, he said, what are you doing here? So I said, I'm laying here. By mistake, I went to the sick people. So he was that kind of a guy, not that he was an angel. He was just like every German. But he liked shrewd kids, that we were trying to survive. So when he looked at me, so he said in German, wenn du hast so Lust zum Leben, da sollst du. And he took me back to the office.
And what does that mean?
If you have so much willpower, you want to live, you should live. So he took me back and he said, give me the list from the block 27. And she gave him the list. And my sister was on the 3rd place. He gave me an eraser to erase a number. And that's how she got saved. And when she saw it, the same woman, and he took the last number from the list and he put it between the other numbers. So she felt bad that she was so mean to me. So she tried to give me some crumbs, breadcrumbs. So I said, you know what? If I didn't die till now from hunger, I don't need your bread. And I threw it to her. And I walked out. I came to the barrack. My sister was sound asleep. And the agony, what I went through was because I felt like I became her mother. And I tried to protect her whenever I could. So I said to her, Bala, you're not going to the gas chamber. I saved you. So she said, Mother, Esther, you wouldn't believe, but I was dreaming of angels. And she was the only survivor from the whole barrack. So when we were liberated, I had the burden, I kept on, in the dead march, I carried her on my shoulders. And I had frostbites on my feet that they said in Ravensbrück that my legs will have to be amputated. So I said, if they will be amputated, let them fall off by itself. And I kept on hiding because over there in Ravensbrück they made experiments on people. And they were looking for me constantly, but my luck was we were only a few days there. So then they had orders that we have to continue because the Russians were coming closer. So that's how we struggled, and we went to Neustadt-Glewe. In Neustadt-Glewe we were liberated. But after the liberation, we didn't even know we were liberated. But they had war veterans, that Polish people, that they were also in a soldier, what do you call it, in a camp. In a, I lost words.
It's okay.
But it doesn't matter. I organized 5 men and we were 10 women. We couldn't get any place. I couldn't go.
Now you knew you were liberated.
We were all, these soldiers came and they told us that the war is finished and that
Do you know
lost.
do you know what date approximately?
It was, we were one of the first one to be liberated. It was like 4th of May, 45. In that camp, this was a small camp, but they kept us there, like to finish us. We had to dig ditches because they didn't have gas chambers there. So whatever was, and we were like the Bible, we were, Durchslag, I forgot already, whatever, a transit camp. A transit camp. So we were not too many, and they figured this group, they could finish us there, but they didn't get to it. So we tried to escape, to get someplace. We couldn't go to Israel. We couldn't go to the American zone because we were Polish.
Now,
so
you're in the camp, how many people?
I don't know exactly, but it was a small camp.
And did the Germans leave?
Pardon me?
The Germans left?
The Germans, they all of a sudden disappeared. But some of them kept on coming in to us. They gave us, we were proud that they are giving us the German uniforms. Because we were wearing rags, that's
right.
what was. So, but all of a sudden everybody disappeared. But there was nothing.
So you're with your sister and a handful of people?
Not a handful, it was a few hundred people.
Few hundred.
But comparing to Birkenau or Auschwitz,
right. Okay.
It was 0, you understand?
So tell me where you went from here.
Pardon me?
What happened next?
Well, so I tried to get someplace and I couldn't. I knew I had a brother in Israel, but I didn't even know the address. But I will get to it. So what happened, I left her in the, we didn't even have the roof over our heads. We were laying outside and the Americans liberated us, but then the Russians took over. But under the Americans, they treated nicer the Germans than they treated us.
What about your feet?
My feet, I lost half a toe in my left foot.
Yeah.
And somehow I managed with swollen feet in the frostbite and in the March of Living. The Dead March was terrible because we were walking in snow, no food. What kept us alive was the snow. This is what we kept on eating. And my sister kept on giving up. She kept on crying, I cannot do it anymore. So I said, Bala, it's the end. We were a big family, maybe we find somebody. And I will get you through, I will carry you. And that's how I carried her. This was on the Dead March,
right.
But when we were already liberated, so I felt I have to do something. I have to find a place. And I became friendly also with a girl in camp. That she became like my camp sister. So we were 3.
What was her name?
Hanka Weintraub. No, but Weintraub was from, she married in Salzburg. And this was her husband's name, I forgot her maiden name.
It's okay.
But I have her on the picture, I show it to you. I organized 5 poles, and I don't have to tell you the feeling, how we loved the poles. I stole 2 horses. I didn't even know how to go near a horse. And we were 10 women. And we were going back to Poland with them. But they were really decent guys. They kept on protecting us from the Russians. Because we were already on the Russian zone. So they kept, when they saw girls, they tried to, to rape them, whatever. So they said that we are their wives. And they didn't come near us. And that's how we were traveling from place to place with the horses and a wagon. And here we were 15 people. And they were looking for me still in Neustadt-Glewe because I stole the horses from the Germans. But we escaped. So as we were going from town to town, we come to a place that I met my friends. I was friendly at home, and we were together in the camp too, but they left probably before us or whatever. And there were a group of Jewish soldiers in the Polish army. And when they saw Jewish girls, they came over and they tried to be very nice to us. And one in particular was a very good-looking guy. He started talking to me. So I told him from where I am. So he said, he's from Jaworzno. So he says, so I said, you are from that town? My sister-in-law's from Jaworzno. What's her name? So I said, her maiden name was Mala Brown. She lives in Israel. And I didn't remember the address. I knew something Akko, and I knew Michael 9, Haifa. So I gave him Akko with the address Michael 9, and there wasn't such a thing, but they found him. And until I came to Benji, there was already a telegram from him that he's alive and he's looking for us. So
Now, how much time, from the time you stole the horses till this event?
this is
Couple
maybe
months?
3 days.
Oh, that's it. Okay.
Days,
Oh,
because
okay.
I came into Poland to Benji was the 8th like of May, 8th of May, and we
Okay.
were liberated either the 2nd or the 4th.
So
It was the beginning of the months.
So did you still have the Polish guys with you?
Of course,
Okay.
they were who could run it, who could go and walk, ride with horses.
Should I move this chair closer?
No, it's okay. So when they started talking to us, they were very nice. As a matter of fact, they invited me to a dance they had in the evening, and the way I looked, I don't have to tell you, I had the stomach out till here, because I was bloated, swollen. And the Russians, while we were riding, so they stopped us, the Russians. So he saw people coming back from a camp, and all of a sudden, another wagon passed by with a young couple, just married. He took off everything from that wagon and gave it to us. So he gave me a crochet blouse, and the crochet, there were such big holes, the design, and a narrow skirt, and he gave me a pair of shoes. The pair of shoes, half of my foot fit, but not the whole foot. The skirt was tight, but I managed. And the blouse, and he gave me a nightgown. That nightgown, during the day it was a blouse, and at night it was a gown. But in that outfit I went to the dance. We didn't dance, but we spent some time with them. They were very nice. At least we had something to eat. But the Poles were jealous. He said, oh, you found already your Jews. So I said, no, I promised you that I'm going with you to Poland. And he liked me, so he said, who's going to know that you are Jewish and I am a Pole? We will build a nice white house near the sea. And I promised him, I kept on promising him. And we were then, but they, like I said, they didn't even touch us. And that's how we were driving, and as we approached Poland, because this was, going from Germany to Poland. And I saw the sign Poznań, a town in Poland. And I don't know how it happened that they went someplace. I took my sister and my friend, and he said, let's run over, there's a train. So the three of us ran to an open train, and they couldn't find us anymore. What would I go with a pole to commit myself? So this is how we went, and I didn't even know where the train is going. We were sitting there, it starts moving, we moved with it, and we came to Katowice. I said, oh my goodness, I'm at home. So as I walk out, so all of a sudden somebody, it's ironic to see what life gives you. Here I have to put someplace my sister because she's sick. And there was a Jewish committee, and obviously that committee was near the station. And all of a sudden I see a friend of mine, he's coming out from the building. So I said, Milton, what are you doing here? He said, oh, I'm going to Czechoslovakia. So he says, oh, I was waiting for you. I stayed with your brother. So I said, which brother? He said, Petseil. He is in Benjin. So he lived with him until he left. So I said, so where are you running? Oh no, my papers are here and I have to leave. So I said, okay, where is my brother? So he didn't have the chance to tell me where my brother is. So I left my sister in that office from the Jewish committee, and I said, you stay here, I'm going to look for Petseil, and we will pick you up. And I took the train to Benjin, which is like a bus here, a city bus. And as we are driving, and he told me who it is, who is here, and I'm looking out the window, and we are on the main street, riding, and I knew already who it is. I ran over to the door, I see the face of my family, so I screamed, Petseil. He jumped into the open car, and this was our reunion. I don't have to tell you the way we met, the whole, and I was among Poles only, everybody was crying. But I stepped out at the next stop, and then we took a train to Katowice, where my sister was. And that's how we united. And then we went back to Benjin, and he had an apartment there already. The next day, he tells me that I should go to the flea market and buy some bread, some food for us. He gave me some zlotys. I didn't even know how to handle money.
Yeah.
And as I'm approaching the market, I see our maid that worked for us with a stand, butter, eggs. So I started screaming, Wirtja. I was so excited, like I found another person from the family. So she points with her finger, you are still alive. So I left everything, I didn't buy anything, and I came home crying. She said, what happened? I told them the story. So I said, listen, I'm not going to stay another day here. I will take Bala, and wherever we could go, we will go. But this is the end of Poland. So he told me that he is engaged to a girl from Lodz, and maybe she will survive. Let's wait another day or two, and then we will leave. So I said, how will you know in 2 days if she survived or not? So he told me that her father died during the war, and he knew where he was buried, so he went to the cemetery, because he was liberated already in January, because he escaped. And he left a note, because they didn't have monuments yet. They had a wooden piece of wood with the name. So he left a note, and he felt that if she will survive, she will go to her father's grave. And that's what happened. She survived. She went to the father's grave and she found his note. So she sent us a cable that she's in Lodge, but she will come to Benjamin. So this was how we were united. And we left 2 days later. So this started our journey with all kind of problems. We were around, I don't know, maybe there were 2 men, we were maybe 8 women. My sister, my friend, and my sister-in-law, and some other people who went with our group to go to Israel illegal. We left Poland and from the Brügge we had connections, whatever, so they told us how we have to behave on our journey. Wherever we go, we are not allowed to talk. And you are leaving as Greek Jews, and you were liberated in Poland, and you are going back to Greece. But we couldn't talk. So this is how we went first to a, I don't remember which town, I think it was Krakow. We went to Krakow by train. From Krakow we went to Czechoslovakia, to Prague. From Prague we went illegal to Klagenfurt, and this was the British zone. You know, and the zones were divided in 4, British, French,
Russian,
American and Russian. So when they saw a group of people, so they realized that we are smuggling to go to Israel. And I don't have to tell you how the British behaved. So they sent us to Austria. So
now, when do you remember? When was this roughly?
Pardon me?
When did this happen?
This happened, everything happened in May.
Everything happened in May.
Everything was the same month.
Okay.
Because don't forget, we were
Okay.
in transit.
So they put you on a train
So
to
we were on
Austria?
a train from one place to the other. So we came to Klagenfurt, and in Klagenfurt they sent us to Vienna. In Vienna was the first time that we were in a building. And I guess they provided us with some kind of food.
Was that a transit building or a hotel?
It was Rothschild's home.
Rothschild. Okay.
Rothschild's brownstone. It was like a palace.
It was a DP camp, Rothschild.
I don't know if they made a DP camp, because this was still, this was the
hospital.
early days, so
Right,
it was
right.
nothing. This was like a transit place.
Okay.
And the Brügge provided us where to stay. So we were just like 2 days, and then we had to but first to smuggle into Vienna, we had to go through a bridge. The bridge was made from pieces of wood through the Donau River. And it looked like broken wood.
Right.
And this is how we had to smuggle. And here I was talking to my brother. I said, I will watch Bala from the back and you keep her from the front so that she doesn't fall into the water. But we made it to Vienna. In Vienna we stayed a few days. And they sent us to Salzburg. In Salzburg we started off with Riedenburg Kaserne. And with this you are probably familiar, because Hanka was there too, right?
Now, Salzburg was the first DP camp you were in.
This was the DP. This was actually a place for the soldiers. But when they lost the war, so the soldiers were gone, and they gave it to us. So this was the UNRWA, or the joint, I don't know. No, I think it was the UNRWA that provided us with our new home. And the conditions I will show you, I have something
from your mouth, what was it? What was the living conditions like?
horrible. But you know what? We had the roof over our heads. We didn't stay in the fields like I stayed
Right.
since the liberation.